Welcome to Building Legendary Leaders, the podcast where leaders leave behind chaos and step into clarity. This is where real stories come alive with the struggles, breakthroughs, and lessons that shape the most effective executives today. Every episode delivers fresh insights you can apply to your own leadership journey. If you are ready to stop putting out fires and start leading with purpose, this is the place for you. Here is your host, Jim Saliba.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Building Legendary Leaders, and let's dive right in. Today, I have a guest who has multiple recipient awards of the Top Nurse, Service Excellence Awards. She serves as the state liaison for the Nurse Practitioners of Georgia, representing them on the national stage, and she's shaping the future of healthcare as a leader at Locum Tenens, and has built a multi-million-dollar-per-month telehealth division from the ground up. Outside of work, she's passionate about reading books, tennis, and cheering on her 17-year-old daughter's soccer career, traveling the country to support her journey. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pamela Ograbisz.
Hi, Jim. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here today. We have a lot to talk about. We have your exciting career and how you built a whole team around this whole telehealth business. I'm going to break it down a little bit to the audience here. We're diving into one of the hardest and most rewarding parts of leadership, building teams. And we're going to start with hiring the right people, moving on to building a culture that works. Next, we'll dig into kind of tracking performance, and finally wrap up into what it takes for people to get promotions. If you stay to the end, Pamela is going to share what she has learned about hiring and some of the tough exits and practical ways to spot good candidates for growth. So Pamela, we already said that you built this multi-million-dollar telehealth system. Tell us how that started.
So my background is that I'm a cardiothoracic nurse practitioner and have been clinically based for years. I became very invested in telemedicine throughout my career, seeing how advantageous it was to patients, and had an opportunity to come and work with Locum Tenens roughly 7 years ago when they were looking to expand this division. They had started it in the psychiatry space, and they wanted to push it into the subspecialties. And so they came looking for me. I was available, and here we are now. But I really started as a team of one.
One. So tell me about your first hire.
So I had been here and we were getting process and procedure together. And then the pandemic hit, right? So COVID-19 came. I would say that every barrier that had been in front of telehealth fell away, and we were expanding like gangbusters. So the first true hire was honestly a business development hire, where we knew that we were trying to get leads and we were working through that process through regular channels, but we needed someone who was going to be more telehealth specific. And so that was the first hire.
And how did doing your first hire go?
It was interesting. So we brought someone initially who came in and was going to be sort of a subset, if you will, away from the telehealth division. And we were going to work in tandem. That person actually did not work out as well. Again, during the pandemic, I think that the interview process was less than robust. It turns out that just wasn't a cultural fit. And so, but quickly pivoted to making an internal hire who really knew our business and had watched what we had done. And she's been an amazing asset to the team and continues to be on the teams till today.
So what was the difference between having somebody from the outside or this internal hire?
I think that when you make outside hires, and I was an outside hire, and if we're going to be incredibly honest, to when I started the programs, but I think that when you look for an outside hire, they absolutely have to fit your culture, and they do have to understand your business model. And I think that's where the disconnect came for this person who joined our organization. I think that they've moved on and then they're doing great things. It just wasn't a strategic alignment for us. The internal hire already knew our processes. We were really incredibly busy. We needed somebody who could hop in, understood our current, Salesforce operations, how our sales cycles worked, what we were doing as far as internal processes. That person was also able to come to speed very quickly. And so I think that was also a reason why they were so successful.
Right. So, when I work with clients who are looking for a job and they're interviewing, or they're on the opposite side of the desk, like you were interviewing somebody, I say there's really only 3 questions the hiring manager wants to know. And that's it. 3 questions. 1, can that person do the job? And that's we ask a lot of questions about. The second one is, will they love the job? Because we don't want them to get in and decide that they don't like the job and they leave, and you're going to have to start all over again. And the third one is, can I stand working with them? Which is about that fit, right? Do they fit us? They could be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but if they don't fit our culture and there's not meshing with our group, they're causing or could cause more issues than they worth.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's also not just about the skill set, but the soft skills, right? Which we don't always emphasize. I think we do have to think about, adaptability, grit. Is someone willing to put in the time and effort to understand the mission and the goal that you're trying to achieve? Because sometimes that's messy, right? It's not always this, from point A to point B. It has zigzags and curves, and being able to identify the people that can stick with it and hang with you to make it to the end.
So when you had this person, when did you realize it was not the right fit?
We were about probably a year in. It's always hard when you part ways with folks. And I think that we had an honest conversation as a leadership team to say, we were looking for X skills. This person brought in some of those, but never truly adapted to our business model, and kept trying to sort of go in a different direction than what we were doing and also where we were finding success. And here's the thing. I really, honestly, I applaud innovation. I want to see it, but it does have to produce an ROI. And so we were never really achieving that. And so therefore you keep kind of trying to pivot, right? You have one-on-ones, you're discussing how do we move the needle. And when that doesn't happen, sometimes the best thing to say is, you know what, I think we just have to pivot and change.
I like that you brought in the concept of a person having ROI. I don't think many leaders understand that. When we bring someone in, it's really nothing more than any other type of investment. We're investing in this person to do a job for us. And without that return on investment, are they the right person? Did we even set up the right job? So you went from that one person to how many now?
Now we have 6.
Now you have 6. So tell me how that grew. You had people who started out with you, and now you're adding 6 people on little by little. Did that change the dynamics?
It absolutely does. Small teams are amazing. I've run lots of small teams. I think that there's the wonderful things about small teams is it's easy communication. You pop your head out the door. Most people are sitting right there. Everyone's involved in the projects, or they at least know something about what's going on within, the confines of the organization. The hard part about small teams is if you do it right, people become close and they become friends. And there is still sort of this hierarchy that has to be respected and engaged, because at the end of the day, it's still business. And so how do you move forward when you have to give difficult feedback? How do you move forward and keep saying, you know what? Originally, when we were 1 people, 2 people, 3 people, and we had this vision, and then Jim and I have talked about this many times where we've said the needs of the business, right, has to be what the needs of the business are. And you have to pivot, and maybe someone's role expectations change, or you make a new hire and then the roles of everyone on the team sort of become more instead of as fluid as they were when everyone was helping, they become more defined. Change management is by far, in my opinion, the hardest thing you will ever have to do as a leader. And you have to keep trying because that change is inevitable, but change is hard for everybody, from the leader all the way down to, the person that you just brought in the organization.
So as you were doing this, tell me about the first time something went sideways. What happened?
So we absorbed a sister company a couple of years ago, and we brought in several really just phenomenal associates that had done great work over there. And I think blending is always difficult. So my company sits underneath the umbrella of a mother organization underneath Jackson Healthcare, and we all have the same culture and values. And so there's the Jackson values are others first, wisdom, which essentially means do the right thing, and growth, so that you keep getting better. The great part and easy part about that is that I can truly say that if you're hired at our company, you really do embody the values. And if you don't stay very long. And so when I brought these folks over, it was that, right, they knew our culture, they understood our business, our model was slightly different than what they'd been doing before. But I think that whenever you are engaging or bringing in new people into opportunities with folks that have been there and are used to things happening the same way, it's tough. And I would say that was probably the first time we sort of saw things go sideways, where we had programs that we were overtaking from another organization, and we had to write them into doing business the way that we like to do it, right? And sort of then, so training our internal staff on, I know this is how you used to do it, but this is how we're going to do it. And then also creating process improvement for those programs at the client level and enacting those all in a seamless opportunity where you want everyone to be happy. And that is a hard thing to manage.
So did people leave when you started saying, well, I know that's the way you used to do it, but this is the way we're going to do it from now on?
I was very fortunate, and I did not have any attrition. We were able to keep everyone, from the team that we rolled over, and they're still here. And so I think that's a testament, honestly, to the push and pull system that we put in. So, which is, I want to give you feedback, but at the same time, I need you to tell me your feedback, right? So was every day smooth? And was, absolutely not. There were peaks and there were valleys in that process, for sure. And I think that you just have to keep growing together as a team. An open door policy is incredibly important, I believe, but you can say that and then you can mirror it, which is a lot of times I will walk out of my office and our folks happen to work in cubes. And so they have, they have their own spaces, but they're sitting all near each other. I will make time to drop by people's cubes, check in, how are things going? I don't just want the flow to go one way, right? You have to make yourself available. You have to, and on a fundamental level, you also have to say, I recognize we just had a one-on-one, or I recognize that we had a check-in, but when you left, I felt like there was something missing. I think that there's something you're not telling me. You got to keep digging. You got to keep asking the questions. That's all you can do to keep the dialogue open, because I think leading is hard, and you need to always be ready to accept new opinions, sometimes if you don't want to hear them, so that you can figure out how to move forward together.
I see. So you told me there were peaks and valleys. So tell me about one of the biggest hurdles you had to get over.
We brought in a very large client that had a panel of physicians that we were working with, and they were providing different kinds of care across the organization. The panel was, I would say, in disarray. And so we had to work tirelessly between the client and then the project manager who was sitting on our team to streamline that opportunity. But it wasn't honestly just those two pieces. When we moved this account over, it was also figuring out the accounting ecostructure, how they used to be billed and how we were going to bill them. And then that also sort of tied down to invoices, how even the physicians were putting in their times and the time cards, right? We were moving over. We had far more automation on our side than what they were used to. And again, managing change showing them that things could be more efficient. But at the end of the day, people like a process that they know. And so when you have to introduce a new process, even though it may be more efficient, it's very, very hard. I liken it to when electronic health records hit the healthcare system. I love paper. I really, really miss it. I miss writing orders on paper and doing all the things. And electronic health records certainly have their downfalls, but at the end of the day, to be connected to every single hospital where I was rounding was phenomenal. And to be able to send records to folks when they were moving or be able to send it to a specialist, all of those things are really wonderful pieces, right? So embracing change is hard. I think that's a theme if you haven't picked up on it already. But I would say that also encouraging and advocating for and teaching people about the new processes that will make things better for them. But we had to do that on both sides, both on our internal side and our client side.
Yeah, I get the whole thing about processes changing. I guess I've been on many different facets of that change. I've worked with a company that acquired other companies and been on that side. I've been acquired. But one of the things that I talk to leaders a lot about is those processes are very much like the apps you have on your smartphone. That ones that work smoothly are really good for our employees because the processes are really an interface of how our people integrate to our business. And we have great apps to do it. It goes smoothly. When they're old and creaky and we have to spend more time getting around them, you're wasting a lot of time and it costs a lot of money. Yet I love what you said, that at the end of the day, even though they're not working well, people are used to what they're used to.
Oh yeah. And sometimes we'll die on a hill for it. So how do you manage those expectations and lead someone to a new opportunity that will be better for them while still respecting the fact that, they can still harbor love for an old yet be antiquated process?
So not everything you did worked out.
No.
Tell me about something you tried, I love to call experiments, that didn't work for you.
I would say that when I was bringing the team along, and we've added a lot of new players, right? And we work with a lot of folks internally as well. So the team itself is small, but we have I have, like, I would call them dotted line teams, right, between technology and other departments that I work with tremendously. And I think that as teams grow and have to figure out what the needs of the business are, I think that there can be unspoken expectations that will ultimately breed resentment if you don't address them. And so when you say, what did I learn and what didn't go well? I would say that when we were building these teams and putting them together, I think that there was a lot of expectations that were left unsaid, right? Where are you going? What is the ultimate goal? And everybody thought something different. And as the leader, because we were growing so quickly, I can honestly say I did not effectively translate the ultimate vision for where we were going. And so that left, I think, uncertain expectations, and people were able to read into that. And that then was sort of tracked back to, gosh, I kind of thought this, or I thought we would be here, or I really would like to do this. And so what I learned from all of that is, as you are growing a new team or a new section of your business and things are going gangbusters and you think everyone's happy because you're breaking barriers and you are smashing goals and everyone's making money, right? Which for the most part, you're like, I think everyone's happy. Do the pulse check of, am I meeting you for every single piece of leadership that you need from me? Do you know what your career path truly is going to be? And has it altered or changed since we all started on this crazy road trip 6.5 years ago, right? So to where are we now?
I love the whole, you didn't call it the North Star, but that's what I often call that vision, the North Star of where we're all going. And it keeps us very much aligned. And another key part that I heard you say is understanding the career goals of your people.
I think that it's very easy to avoid. You can have surface conversations and not dig in. So you think you're checking the box, but you're not really having the hard conversation of, listen, this is the role where you really want to get to. You need to achieve this, 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 and this by these dates in order to be on your timeline. Some people are really great at that. And a lot of times, though, you will find yourself, I think, when you go to have those conversations, they're a lot harder than it is to just go check boxes, right? Because these are people and it's not just a piece of paper, and you're dealing with all of those other things that we all bring to work with us. And so how do you manage everyone's expectations, including their internal and external concerns, and then make sure that they are truly on the path that was meant to be for them? And as much as I want everyone to be promoted, right? Promotions are certainly earned. How do you get there? And how do you, again, level set expectations so that people know exactly what they have to do to get there, so that there's no concern or people think that there's favoritism or this person was able to get to this spot, but you said I had to have X, Y, and Z, and this person only had X, right? So I think that we also need to look at fairness in business. How are we making sure that everyone knows exactly what they need and they have all of the information up front? And then if they have that and they're achieving and the needs of the business support the opportunity, right, makes it super simple. But I think that many times there's a lot of ambiguity for some reason around promotions or how do I get to the next step? And I think it's really, it's incumbent upon the leader to make sure that we erase that.
I really love that. And I really agree. And I talk to a lot of leaders about that, being specific. And we talk about SMART goals, right? Specific and measurable, achievable. But it isn't just that. It is about the needs of the business. So often when I'm coaching someone, I talk about getting them promotion ready, doing the things that you said, showing that we can move up and do that work so that when the business is ready for it, we can do that.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you need both halves. So you told me you have 6 people working for you, but I know you have dotted lines and you work across departments like crazy. How does that affect your leadership?
I think it's made me a better leader because I work with production teams. I work with operational teams. I work with folks that are doing licensing and credentialing and all different, everyone's in all different facets. And I think that has given me a much better perspective. I think I'm a work in progress every single day. Any leader who tells you that they've got it all figured out, I would love to sit at their feet and listen. But my background, right, I come from a very high-paced, very high-stress environment. Cardiothoracic surgery, my mentors and the surgeons who I worked with on a daily basis, and rightly so, there was really very little room for error. And so the communication that you have tends to be incredibly black and white. It either worked or it didn't. There's oftentimes things are yelled or it's gruff and no one's really checking in on your feelings when we're done, right? The outcome of the case is what speaks for that. And so I would say that as, when you work across departments and you start to see folks in very different areas, right? So coming from high-paced healthcare and being on the front lines of delivering that, and then coming to an executive position and working across multifunctional teams that are in business, I have found that it is okay to slow down. You must seek to understand. Everybody has a different process, and that's okay. That process may not work for you, but you also don't necessarily have to go in and disrupt everyone else's process, which for a while there, I think I thought that I needed to. And I think the other big piece that I've taken away from my time is that if you can just listen, is that such a skill that I am still working on? I'm better. But if I were to be completely transparent, I want to say something. I'm hearing someone and my brain is already formulating the response. And I have to say internally, stop, keep listening, and then respond. Because my goal, I think, through the first 20 plus years of my career is you're standing in a room, everyone's looking at you, and you have to have the answer, and they want you to shout it out. And in this role, many times the best way you can help is to say, tell me your side, tell me the problem. How can I support your progress? What can I help you achieve today? What's your ultimate, goal here? Asking, seeking those answers, and then providing the support. It is, I feel like I've done truly just a 180 on the leadership style. I have to say that if I ever go back into the hospital, I'd probably be, one of those folks who are like, oh, you're so quiet. But I think there's evolutions, right? We go through evolutions as leaders. And I would say that's what I've learned the most from being here and working across multifunctional teams, is that you can really learn so much from all of these different processes and what teams have built. And you take those nuggets with you and then you apply them.
So you moved away from telling to using questions as your main tool.
Yes.
And you find that better, asking questions rather than telling?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you get far more buy-in. So I think many times we think we have to go in and we have to fix. So if someone comes to you and they say, do you have 5 minutes? First of all, it's never 5 minutes, but the answer should always be, yes, I do. And if you don't, then reschedule it. Nothing worse than a distracted leader who's trying to help, but really is trying to multitask. Another thing I've learned. I would say that asking those questions, the probing questions, what do you understand about your current situation? What do you think you want to do this time or next time? And when do you want to deliver it? It holds people accountable, but also brings them into the narrative and helps them start to formulate and move forward on this progression of becoming leaders themselves, but also developing the confidence and the skills that you already know they have. So many times people walk into my office and they're asking my opinion, and I'm like, I know you know this. I know you know this. You've already got the solution. I've watched you. I've seen you do it before. They want the validation, but now instead of me sort of just immediately giving, I say, let's walk it through. Let me hear what you've got. It's much more productive. And in all honesty, I think also much better for anyone that you're supporting.
One of my favorite questions in that scenario is, I know you've been thinking about this already. Why don't you catch me up on your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I want their opinion. Many times they've already had the solution, or at least I would say they've puzzled through a good piece of it. Right. There are times when people have struggled with maybe interpersonal dynamics, where they do really need you to say, okay, take the step back. Let's relook at this, reframe, see where we can come from a different angle, and again, still asking the questions, but you may be giving a little bit more information. But I would say by and large now, as I have, and this has been an evolution in leadership for me, for sure, and still an ongoing work in progress. But the more questions I ask, the better the product is when I'm done.
Wow. So if a leader is starting this now, how would you advise them for their first step?
Get some really honest feedback. And if you can participate in some kind of program that does a 360, or, that where you can really, and go after the people that are going to give you the honest stuff. Don't survey the folks that by and large say, I love you, you're wonderful, because we all love that. That's great. Right. But go after the folks who will really say, listen, you excel in, 10 or 15 of these areas, but here's where you really need to dig in. And I will tell you, that's not for the faint of heart. It's very, very hard. I think that most of us who are in vice presidential positions or higher, you're climbing the ladder, you got there because you're obviously good at what you do. And you're probably a decent leader as well. And when I say decent, that means that your people like you, they'll follow you because you're good at your job, and they think you won't lead them astray. And usually if you're in business, you're going to make them a little bit of money. But I think that the goal of being a great leader is that if anyone were to survey you on any given day, they would say 100% trust them, would follow them, anywhere. And they really always have the team as their, their rudder. That if the team is happy, then they're happy. And I think that sounds very easy to do, right? If you really, really dig in, to be a good leader, you have to ask the hard questions. And I promise you that everyone you lead, there's something that they wish that you would do better.
Yeah, I was going to say that is fantastic advice. But I'm going to change our topic a little bit. And let's talk about Pamela, her youth. What kind of, in your childhood, prepped you for this type of role?
I definitely come from a family of doers, lots of doctors, dentists, lawyers, all the things. So everybody, I think, sort of had that path. But honestly, my mom. So my mother was a teacher in a private school, and she really cared about her students, but really cared about her teachers, right? And it was just this tiny little school in Virginia. And she had the opportunity to become the headmaster of that, the principal of the lower division. Did that for many, many years, beloved and respected, and then became the headmaster of a different private school. And I watched her over the years, and she and I are incredibly different people. She is this quiet grace that I really admire. And when she retired, and I attended her retirement reception and was very grateful to be able to give a little speech. What people said about her, because I kind of asked them before I wrote it, was just the most glowing. You can't make that stuff up. She was beloved. And I think it's because they said she always listened. She was fair. And she consistently took action on the items that were important to them. And even if she couldn't make a difference, she came back and said, I'm sorry, here's why I can't. The accountability, right? And so, to be honest with you, while we do very different jobs, I strive for that. I think that we could probably all use a little more grace today, both give it to ourselves and to the folks that we lead, by saying that, I want you to be great at what you do. I want to be good at what I do. How do we do that together?
If you see that in your mom, your daughter, what does she see in you?
Well, I have two of them. So I have one who does play soccer, and she does travel over the country, but I have one who's at the United States Naval Academy. And she's doing some pretty impressive things too. So I would say that the girls definitely see determination. I have worked since they were little. And I had the opportunity to be home with them for several years, which I was very, very grateful for. I did take a break with them when they were young. But I think that when I have asked them sometimes, do you wish that mommy was home? I'm so sorry I was late, or I missed a play, or I missed a game. And by and large, they look at me and they're like, we know what you do is really important, and we're really proud of you. And I think that means a lot to me, because I want them to be successful in however they choose to define that. Success is different for each person. And if they want to go out and be, lawyers or doctors or dentists or pipe fitters, as long as they're happy and that they do it with integrity and pride, I think that I'd be pretty pleased.
I have two daughters as well, and I love how you talk about your girls. And we connected to how you feel with your mother. This is generations of mother-daughter connections. What's your secret?
Communication, right? Because I don't care how close your family is. My family's pretty tight. And my husband's family is too. You have to talk. And when you get upset, everybody gets time to simmer down, but you have to come back to the table. Our kids, we tried very hard with practices. It's almost impossible, but you tried very hard to have dinner together, spending some weekends together, quality time, figuring that out. I talk to my mother probably no less than 4 times a week. She lives in Boca and she's living her best life now, but she is, I still really respect her opinion. And I have to tell you that there are some days when, and I'm sure we've all been there, I've had a really rough day or something has gone sideways, or, and I call her and I say, I need your opinion. I need your honest opinion. Sometimes I call Jim. but at the end of the day, you have to have, it's so important to have a sounding board, but I would say for your family, for your girls, for whoever you're trying to build that kind of a relationship with, honest and open communication and being willing to listen to both sides, because no one is built the same and you will never always agree. But if the relationship is important enough, then you have to find a happy medium.
Great advice. Well, I think this is great. Why don't you tell us how people can reach you? Share your information.
Absolutely. So I am the Vice President of Clinical Operations at locumtenens.com and LT Telehealth. We have websites that you can certainly navigate to. My email is, and my last name is tough, but it is up on the screen here, but it is P. Ograbisz, OGRABISZ, at locumtenens.com, LOCUMTENENS.com. If you'd rather call me, you absolutely can. 678-501-2799. We're in Alpharetta, Georgia. If anyone ever is in the Atlanta area and wants to, have a discussion, I'm always up for that as well. I attend a lot of trade shows and do a lot of talks, and I certainly hope that people will reach out if they'll be around.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for being on our show. And I'm sure our listeners will enjoy this conversation.
Thank you, Jim. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Building Legendary Leaders podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.